Today we're going over the stories of historical players who activated God mode and flat out refused to log off. Character 1, Cleopatra. In the game of empires, Egypt was an absolute legacy server. It was ancient, glorious, but completely running out of resources. The new mega server on the block, Rome, was slowly consuming everything around it. When Cleopatra logged in as co-ruler at age 18, her kingdom was practically begging to be conquered. To make matters worse, her co-admin was her 10-year-old brother, who immediately exiled her. Most rulers would accept the game over, but Cleopatra realized she just needed to borrow someone else's admin privileges. Enter Julius Caesar, Rome's most powerful player, who just arrived in Egypt. Her brother tried to win Caesar over first. Cleopatra was banned from the palace, so she used the ultimate stealth exploit. She had herself smuggled directly into Caesar's private room, rolled up inside a carpet. She bypassed the entire firewall and dropped right into his lobby. Caesar was so impressed by the audacity, they formed an immediate alliance. They defeated her brother, and Cleopatra got her admin rights back. She even had a son with Caesar, practically linking the Egyptian and Roman servers. She moved to Rome and flexed her power right in front of the Senate. But in 44 BC, the Roman moderators manually deleted Caesar. Cleopatra's main shield was gone. She had to flee back to Egypt immediately. Back home, her server was experiencing critical failures: famine, drought, and a failing economy. She needed another top-tier Roman ally to survive. Enter Mark Antony, the new heavy hitter in the East. Enter Mark Antony, the new heavy hitter in the East. He summoned her to a meeting in Tarsus to test her loyalty. Cleopatra made him wait. You don't summon a queen, you invite her. When she finally arrived, she didn't just show up. She staged the ultimate cutscene. She sailed in on a golden barge with purple sails, dressed as Aphrodite. Antony was completely mesmerized. The alliance was secured. For years, they ruled the East together, throwing legendary parties and expanding their territory. She once dissolved a priceless pearl in vinegar just to win a bet about who could host the most expensive dinner. But back in Rome, Caesar's heir Octavian was preparing a massive ban campaign. He convinced Rome that Cleopatra had brainwashed Antony and was trying to steal the Roman server. It all came down to the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. The Egyptian fleet was outmaneuvered. The battle was lost. They retreated to Alexandria, but the system was already crashing. Octavian's forces breached the city. Believing Cleopatra was already dead, Antony logged himself out. Cleopatra was captured. Octavian planned to parade her through Rome in chains as a trophy, but she absolutely refused to let her rival get the kill credit. According to legend, she smuggled a venomous snake into her room hidden in a basket of figs. She chose her own exit strategy. Path cleared, returning to system root. Character 2, Rasputin. Most players try to avoid taking damage. Grigori Rasputin's character build was completely different. His health bar simply refused to deplete. Born a peasant in Siberia, he wandered his way into the highest VIP lobby in the world, the Russian Imperial Court. In 1905, Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra were desperate. Their son and heir to the server, Alexei, had hemophilia. Any minor injury could be fatal. The top-tier medical guild couldn't fix it. But somehow this random wandering mystic could. When Rasputin prayed, the bleeding stopped. To the Tsarina, this was a miracle. To the rest of the players, it looked like a massive system exploit. Rasputin gained absolute trust. He started influencing political decisions and hiring and firing ministers. The Russian nobles were furious. A peasant was running their server. So in December 1916, a group of nobles led by Prince Felix Yusupov decided to manually ban him. They invited Rasputin to Yusupov's palace basement for a late-night party. The trap was set. They laced his favorite cakes with enough cyanide to kill 5 men. Rasputin arrived and happily ate a cake. Yusupov waited for him to drop dead. But Rasputin didn't die. He just ate another one. And another one. Panicking, Yusupov poured him glasses of wine also heavily laced with cyanide. Rasputin drank the wine. He asked Yusupov to play the guitar. 2 hours later, the poison debuff had done literally 0 damage. Yusupov excused himself, ran upstairs, and grabbed a revolver. He came back down and shot Rasputin directly in the chest. Rasputin collapsed. A doctor checked his pulse and declared him offline. The conspirators left to plan the cover-up. But Yusupov went back down to check the body. Suddenly, Rasputin's eyes snapped open. The health bar had miraculously restored. Rasputin grabbed Yusupov, whispering, "You bad boy." He fought off the prince and stumbled up the stairs. The other assassins couldn't believe it. The target was still active. They shot him again, once in the back and once in the head. He fell again, but just to be sure the glitch was fixed, they beat him repeatedly. They bound his hands and feet with heavy rope. And then they threw him into the freezing Malaya Nevka River. When the police found the body 2 days later, legend says the autopsy revealed water in his lungs, which meant that after being poisoned, shot 3 times, and beaten, he was still alive when he hit the water. The assassins thought they had saved the server, but Rasputin had warned the Tsar, if he was killed by nobles, the royal family wouldn't survive the year. He was right. Weeks later, the Russian Revolution began. The entire Russian Empire server crashed permanently. Path cleared, returning to system root. Character 3, Theodore Roosevelt. In any game, there's always that one player who chooses the heavy tank build. For American history, that player was Theodore Roosevelt. He was a cowboy, a soldier, an explorer, and the 26th president. By 1912, he was running for president again under his own third-party faction, the Bull Moose Party. It was October 14, 1912, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Roosevelt was leaving his hotel, standing in an open car, waving to the crowd. An assassin named John Schrank had been tracking him across the country. Schrank stepped forward, drew a .38 caliber revolver, and fired. A direct hit to the chest at close range. Most players would log out instantly from critical damage. The crowd exploded into chaos and immediately grabbed the assassin, preparing to lynch him on the spot. But Roosevelt just stood back up and yelled for the crowd to stop. He demanded they bring the shooter to him, looked at him, and simply said, "Bring him to justice." His aides were panicked. They screamed for a doctor and wanted to rush him to the hospital. Roosevelt casually ran a quick self-diagnostic check. He coughed into his hands. Seeing no blood in his saliva, he deduced the bullet hadn't pierced his lung. He completely ignored the doctors and ordered the driver to take him to his speech. The crowd inside the auditorium had no idea there had just been an assassination attempt. Roosevelt walked onto the stage, bleeding from the chest. He stepped to the podium and unbuttoned his coat. He showed the audience his blood-soaked shirt. The entire room gasped. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his speech. It was a 50-page manuscript, folded in half. It had a massive bullet hole directly through the center. The bullet had also hit his heavy steel spectacles case. He had basically equipped passive armor without knowing it. He looked at the shocked audience and delivered one of the greatest lines in history. "Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." The crowd absolutely lost their minds. And then, instead of going to the hospital, he just kept talking. For 10 minutes. For 30 minutes. He gave his speech for 84 straight minutes, with a bullet lodged in his chest wall. When he finally finished and went to the hospital, the doctors took an X-ray. The bullet was lodged so deep in his muscle, right next to his rib, that it was safer to just leave it there. And they did. He carried that bullet inside him for the rest of his life. He didn't win the election that year, but he won permanent legendary status. Some players complain about game lag or minor damage. Roosevelt took a critical hit and just kept playing. Sector 3 cleared, preparing next file. Character 4, Fidel Castro. If surviving assassinations was an e-sport, Fidel Castro would be the undisputed, undefeated world champion. When Castro took over the Cuban server in 1959, the United States was not happy. The CIA, acting like the ultimate server moderators, decided he needed to be permanently banned. But hitting Castro with the ban hammer turned out to be mathematically impossible. Officially, Castro survived an estimated 638 assassination attempts, and the methods the CIA used sound less like military strategy and more like Looney Tunes cartoons. They tried an exploding cigar, yes, literally a cigar packed with high explosives, but it never reached him. They tried to poison his favorite chocolate milkshake at a Havana hotel. The assassin hid the pill in the freezer, but it froze to the ice and ripped open when he tried to get it. Castro drank his shake and left, completely unharmed. Knowing Castro loved scuba diving, the CIA infected a diving suit with a lethal fungus. But the guy supposed to deliver it thought it looked too cheap. so he bought Castro a different, clean suit instead. They even rigged a spectacular, brightly painted seashell with explosives, hoping he would pick it up while diving. They had to scrap the plan because their mini-sub didn't have a long enough range. But the most legendary attempt involved his former lover, Marita Lorenz. The CIA sent her back to Cuba with poison pills. She hid them in her jar of cold cream, but they melted. Castro figured out she was there to kill him. Instead of arresting her, he pulled out his own pistol, and he handed it to her. He told her, "You can't kill me, nobody can." She dropped the gun. He was right. It was as if Castro had an invisible shield that specifically deflected American intelligence. He outlasted Eisenhower. He outlasted Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, and 7 other U.S. presidents. While the greatest superpower on Earth spent millions trying to delete him, they were repeatedly defeated by bad luck, melted pills, and sheer absurdity. In 2016, the server finally caught up to him. Not by an exploding cigar, or a poisoned wetsuit, or a mafia hitman. He died of old age at 90. He beat the odds so thoroughly that the odds simply gave up. Some players are hard to kill. Castro was practically a glitch in the probability matrix. He proved that sometimes the best defense against a banhammer is just incredibly good RNG. Or maybe he just never logged out. He exhausted the server's entire assassination budget. A legendary run. Untouchable. Sector 4 cleared, preparing next file. Character 5, Qin Shi Huang. For centuries, the Chinese server was stuck in a massive, chaotic battle royale called the Warring States period. 7 factions fighting endlessly, until one player decided to force a server merge. By 221 BC, the king of Qin conquered everyone else and declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. He completely standardized the code. One currency, one language, one system of weights and measures. He even started building the Great Wall, creating the ultimate firewall against northern barbarians. He had absolute admin rights over everything except his own health bar. The most powerful man in the world was absolutely terrified of a game over. He became completely obsessed with finding a cheat code for immortality. He funded massive expeditions, sending fleets into the Eastern Sea to find mythical islands. He was looking for the elixir of life, the ultimate health potion, but nobody ever found it. Realizing that staying online forever might be impossible, he started planning for the post-game lobby. If he had to log out, he was going to take his army with him. He ordered the construction of an enormous underground necropolis. Over 8,000 life-size terracotta warriors, horses, and chariots. Every single one had unique facial features. It was the most insane defensive base ever built for a deleted account. But he still hadn't given up on the immortality glitch. His royal alchemists finally brought him what they thought was the ultimate potion. It was mercury. In ancient China, mercury was believed to have magical, life-extending properties. In reality, it is highly toxic and causes severe brain damage and organ failure. The emperor started taking mercury pills every day, thinking he was leveling up. Instead, he was applying a permanent poison debuff to himself. During a grand tour of his empire in 210 BC, the damage finally became critical. He died at the age of 49. His advisors were terrified that if the server found out the admin was dead, there would be massive riots. So they decided to fake his ping for 2 months. To hide the smell of the decomposing emperor in the summer heat, they ordered carts of rotting fish to travel next to his carriage. They sent food into the carriage and forged official documents in his name. When the news finally broke, the Qin dynasty collapsed almost immediately. The unified server descended back into a chaotic free-for-all. Qin Shi Huang wanted to live forever. In a way, his account was immortalized. His underground army was discovered 2,000 years later, becoming one of the greatest wonders of the world. But the irony is legendary. The player who was most afraid of being deleted literally deleted himself trying to find a cheat code. His army still guards a server that hasn't existed for millennia. The ultimate base defense for an empty lobby. Sector 5 cleared, preparing final file. Character 6, Blackbeard. Every multiplayer game eventually spawns a raid boss. A player so overpowered and terrifying that it takes an entire coordinated team just to bring them down. In the golden age of piracy, that boss was Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard. Blackbeard understood that intimidation was the best crowd control mechanic. Before a battle, he would tie slow-burning fuses under his hat so his face was entirely wreathed in black smoke. He literally applied an area of effect fear debuff to the enemy team. They often surrendered without firing a single shot. In 1718, he initiated a massive server event. He successfully blockaded the entire port of Charleston. He held an entire city hostage, not for mountains of gold, but for a chest of medical supplies. The British authorities finally decided this player's bounty was too high to ignore. Governor Spotswood funded a private strike team led by Lieutenant Robert Maynard to hunt him down. They cornered Blackbeard at Ocracoke Inlet in November 1718. The final boss fight had begun. Blackbeard drank a glass of rum and yelled across the water, "Damnation seize my soul if I give you quarters, or take any from you." He opened the engagement with a devastating cannon broadside. The attack instantly wiped out a massive chunk of Maynard's crew on the deck. But Maynard was a tactical player. He used a classic ambush exploit. He ordered all his surviving men to hide below deck, making the ship look abandoned. Thinking he had cleared the lobby, Blackbeard and his pirates boarded the ship. The trap was sprung. Maynard's men burst from the hold, firing a point-blank volley. It instantly devolved into a brutal close-quarters melee. Maynard and Blackbeard found each other in the chaos and drew their pistols. Maynard fired first, landing a direct critical hit to Blackbeard's body. Blackbeard didn't even flinch. He swung his massive cutlass, completely shattering Maynard's sword. The boss was about to deliver the finishing blow, but a British sailor flanked him, slashing Blackbeard across the neck. Even with a slashed throat, Blackbeard kept fighting, pulling out another pistol. The entire strike team had to focus all their damage on him. It took 5 direct gunshot wounds and 20 severe sword cuts. Only then did the engine finally register the damage. Blackbeard went down. Maynard cut off his head and hung it from the bowsprit of his ship. They threw his headless body overboard. According to pirate legend, his body stubbornly swam 3 laps around the ship before finally sinking. Maynard collected the bounty. The server was finally safe. 6 players, 6 unbelievable health bars. Cleopatra hacked the Roman admin system. Rasputin ignored the poison debuff. Roosevelt tanked a bullet to finish a cutscene. Castro outlasted the entire CIA mod team. Qin Shi Huang deleted himself hunting for a cheat code, and Blackbeard tanked 25 critical hits. They proved that in the game of history, sometimes survival isn't about the rules. It's about how hard you refuse to log out. If you want to boost your own survival stats, drop a comment on who had the best God mode and hit subscribe. We'll see you in the next patch update.